what we have found is that most organizations don't have huge budgets. They have one person. And sometimes it's only half a person to begin with. You don't, I mean, the extraordinary thing about social technologies compared to all the other marketing tools, really low budget. The technologies are really inexpensive to begin to listen and put up a feed of Twitter search results. I mean, it's that simple. Even to this day, I have all these monitoring tools at my disposal. I use Twitter search first and foremost. The one thing I track on my various tweet decks and just using Twitter. So I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that budgets stand in the way of developing that relationship with customers. That is just a red herring. And in many organizations, people think being at the top of that ladder, being at the top of that pyramid is the best thing in the world. And I look at the numbers and it says, you know, not everybody wants to be a producer or a creator. Some people are just perfectly happy being in a passive relationship with the organization. And you have to accept that. At some point, it makes sense for them to go to the next level of sharing because they're motivated because they see value in it. And I say, not everyone's going to share, but I think the vast majority of people will share at one point or another. But you got to find that time. The customer relationship I have today is primarily transactional. It is, did they buy something from me? When was the last time they bought something from me? Are they close to buying something from me? It's opportunity pipeline. So customer relationship management is not about relationship management, it's about transaction management. So if you look at some of these CPG companies who actually have these customer care centers, they actually are about the relationships. They don't care whether you bought it or not, you already bought it. They want to know, did it work, did it not, how's the relationship going? And they don't even keep profiles of each of their customers. All they have is, did that problem get resolved? So they don't really have a relationship either. So these kind of true relationship management tools don't exist. It doesn't exist in practice in most businesses. And so therefore, because no one's ever thought about, this is where I am today, and this, I can see, I can describe it in rich detail what that relationship looks like. I mean, I think most organizations don't know. Could they actually describe it, how it feels, how it looks, how it interacts from both the company's perspective and the customer's perspective? That's the hard work, I think, that companies have to go through, and they don't. Because if you think long-term you want it to be at this brand level, then start building for that creative center of excellence here, but know that you're going to have to be fairly command and control of it today. Be very centralized, make those brands do what they don't want to do, go to those education classes, have them take ownership of this, actually craft a customer strategy that will be reflected in their Facebook and Twitter executions, and then have them make it safe for them to fail, because that's the number one reason why they won't do it, because they're afraid they're going to really screw up. And the cost as a brand manager in the past of screwing up was just extraordinary. In social media, it's really low. I mean, the cost of making mistakes is actually really, really low. I think the nature of journalism is changing, and it's going through a time right now where it's really, really tough for journalists because the business model of traditional media is completely wrecked. I mean, there's no other way around it. I was on a board where one large news organization, journal website, was saying, you know, what they're saying about our journal news site is what they said about newspapers in general. So even online digital news is suffering because of the real-time news, and it's because it's fragmenting so much. So in that space of where do you find relevance and influence, right now, oftentimes it is from your past experience, so just what I've used in the past, but the only way that changes and the way it breaks through is through my social networks. I mean, one of the top ways that anybody finds out news stories going into the serendipitous area, it is through the filter of their friends. Increasingly so, the new links that you have, the photos, the things you pay attention to in the daily conversations, and also in the virtual and social conversations. So I look at worlds, granted through a very social lens, but I also see that the filters, my best filters, that I rely on are the ones that are based on the algorithms of my friends and what they look at. And so I look at something like TechMe, which is one of my key sources for news and information, and it's based on the small network of tech sites and what they link to. which is in some ways a reflection of those social networks. So if you think about links, traditionally has been networks of people who link to each other, and now you have a different sort of signal that says what relevance is going to be to you. So not necessarily my friends, because my friends don't necessarily care about the same things I do. I have two very distinct set of friends. I have the Wired magazine friends and the Real Simple friends, and the two of them do not mix at all. And yet, the people who are like me, there are a few people who are sort of these geeky moms, really into technology. They're not necessarily my friends, but those are the people who I really do relate to, and I want to see more of the stuff that they look at. At this point, what I'm hearing from more organizations than anything else, it's the time of experimentation is over. I need to have consistency. Either at the business unit level, I need a strategy to say what my brands are doing, at the corporate level to say what are my business units doing. It's no longer about what can I do with this, but are we doing it in a way that's coherent and creating the right kind of customer experience that we want. So I think what's really hard are the people who grew up in this more organic, ad hoc way, the people who were the original social strategists out there. They were feeling kind of lost because their loosey-goosey kind of evangelist, firebrand starter kind of way of doing things isn't going to fly anymore. And so the bureaucrats have in some ways stepped in. It's not really as fun, it's not as engaging, just be authentic and transparent. Well, what does that mean? Oh, you mean you want me to write it down? There's a reaction. I'm looking at two trends in particular. I'm looking at social data. And the consequence of all of this sharing is that there's lots of stuff that's out there that people are sharing. So social search just came out. I'm fascinated by how that is going to change the search experience as we have this new layer of signals. It's again not the only layer, but it's a very important one of not only the people who are in your network, but people who are like you, because that will lead to more personalized results. So personalized search, social search, and semantic-based search all coming together to create a new search experience. So I'm really excited because it's finally here. I've been talking about it for almost a decade, and it's finally here. The other thing I would say is that social data, all the information you can get about a person, and the scary part of it is the privacy and permission part. So let me come back to privacy in a second. What you can do with that data is do targeting, relevance, content for the customer, and also inside the organization. For the first time, we actually have data on what you are actually working on. And the amount of information you can have now around things like expertise, location, or knowledge sharing and management just completely rewrites all of those enterprise collaboration tools and applications. Privacy and permission. I think in a couple years' time, it's going to go through this painful period for a while, where it's not going to be so much around protecting your privacy as it is making sure the right permissions are in place. So that when I share information, because I have chosen to not be private about that information, I've chosen to share it with people. It's making sure that you have the confidence that it's being shared to the right people at the right time in the right place. And it's all about context, because even though I shared my photos on Facebook around a birthday party, I may not want it showing up on that bowling alley 3 months from now, even for my friends to see. I may or may not want that. So I think in the future, it's not going to be around privacy issues, it's going to be about permission issues, two very different things. And I don't think it's going to be so much an issue. I think it's all going to just die down and go away. And people are thinking, oh, come on, privacy won't matter? I'm like, no, it's not so much privacy, permissions will matter. And the reason I give that is, remember the cell phones when they came out with caller ID? How everyone said that was a violation of privacy? And what happens now when somebody calls and says unknown caller? Do you pick it up? Or do you ignore it? You ignore it. It took 8 years for that to flip in terms of going from a privacy violation to a, if I don't know who you are, if you're not willing to share it, you don't deserve my time. And so I think this is also going to flip. It's going to take a couple years. We are basically about 2 years into the Facebook being mainstream. Just 2 years into this, really early yet. So I say give it about 4 more years, and this whole privacy thing will not be so much of an issue. We would just be understanding this is how you control it. You control it, not Facebook.